Einstein died at 1:15 in the morning on April 18th, 1955. He had one final wish: cremate the body, scatter the ashes, leave nothing behind for the world to worship. But by 9 a.m., just 7.5 hours after his last breath, a hospital pathologist named Dr. Thomas Harvey had already opened Einstein's skull, removed his brain without asking anyone, photographed it from every angle, injected it with preserving chemicals, and quietly taken it home. No permission from Einstein's family, no authorization from the hospital, no legal consequence, no arrest, nothing. The man who explained gravity, time, and the fabric of space itself could not protect his own brain from being stolen off his deathbed. And here is the part that should disturb you most. That brain sat in a cardboard cider box, underneath a beer cooler, in a closet in Kansas, for 23 years, while the world assumed it had been properly preserved in some prestigious research institution. It wasn't. It was in a closet. And when a journalist finally tracked it down in 1978 and asked Harvey why, Harvey said he always intended to study it. He just never got around to it. That is where the greatest neuroscience story of the 20th century begins. Not in a laboratory, not in a university, in a cider box, in Kansas, forgotten. To understand why the world wanted that brain so badly, you have to understand what Einstein actually did. He was born on March 14th, 1879, in Ulm, Germany. His parents were secular Jewish. His father, Hermann, a salesman and engineer. His mother, Pauline, a gifted pianist. When he was very young, his parents were worried. He was late to speak. He was slow to respond. He had a habit of silently repeating sentences to himself before speaking them aloud. A behavior so unusual his family called it a quirk. Then at age 5, sick in bed, his father brought him a compass. He held it. He turned it in his hands. He watched the needle swing. Always, always north, guided by invisible forces through empty space. And something broke open inside him. He later described the experience this way: something deeply hidden had to be behind things. That sentence, said by a 5-year-old boy holding a compass in bed, is perhaps the most important sentence in the history of modern physics. Because that question, what is hidden behind things, never left him. By 12, he was teaching himself algebra, calculus, and Euclidean geometry. His tutor, Max Talmud, later said that only a short time after giving young Einstein a geometry textbook, the boy had worked through the entire thing. Then Talmud tried to keep up with him through higher mathematics, and couldn't. At 14, Einstein had already mastered integral and differential calculus. At 12, he was convinced that nature could be understood as a mathematical structure. At 13, his tutor introduced him to Kant's Critique of Pure Reason, a work incomprehensible to most adults, and Einstein read it clearly. He was not just smart, he was built differently. And the brain inside his skull, the one that would one day be hidden in a cider box in Kansas, was already doing things that no other brain around it could follow. In 1895, at 16 years old, Einstein failed the entrance examination for the Federal Polytechnic School in Zurich. He failed the general portion. In physics and mathematics, he was extraordinary. By 1900, he had his teaching diploma. By 1902, he had a job at the Swiss Patent Office in Bern, a third-class technical expert, reviewing other people's inventions all day. Every academic institution he applied to rejected him. No university would hire him. No professor would take him on as an assistant. He was 23 years old, unknown, underfunded, professionally invisible. the year scientists now call his annus mirabilis, his miracle year. He published 4 papers in 1 year, working alone, while employed as a patent clerk. The first paper explained the photoelectric effect, proving that light travels in discrete packets of energy, later called photons. This paper would eventually win him the Nobel Prize. The second explained Brownian motion, the random movement of particles in fluid, and in doing so, provided the first definitive evidence that atoms exist. The third introduced special relativity, fundamentally rewriting how the universe handles space and time. The fourth was the shortest paper he ever wrote, 3 pages, and contained the equation that would change everything. E equals mc squared. Energy equals mass multiplied by the speed of light, squared. In one line, Einstein had shown that mass and energy are the same thing, interchangeable, convertible, united by a constant so large that even a tiny amount of mass contains an almost incomprehensible amount of energy. He was 26 years old, working at a patent office, writing the physics of the future during his lunch breaks. The question scientists have spent 70 years trying to answer is how. How does a mind produce this? Not with better equipment, not with better funding, not with better colleagues, but alone in a government office in Bern, on a salary of 3,500 Swiss francs a year? The answer, researchers came to believe, might be inside the brain itself, the brain that a pathologist would steal 50 years later. After Harvey took the brain home to Kansas, nothing happened for a long time. He had promised the Einstein family that the brain would be used for legitimate scientific research. He fully intended to honor that promise. But getting scientists to study it, getting institutions to take the project seriously, proved harder than expected. Harvey cut some slices, sent some tissue samples to leading pathologists, kept the rest. And the years passed. In 1978, 23 years after Einstein's death, a journalist named Stephen Levy decided to track down the brain. He drove across the country. He found Harvey in Wichita, Kansas, living modestly, working, no longer as a pathologist, having lost that job in part because of the brain. Harvey brought out the cider box from the closet. He opened it. Inside, 2 large mason jars, 240 blocks of brain tissue, floating in solution. Levy published his story in New Jersey Monthly in 1978. The world suddenly remembered that the brain existed, and the scientific papers began. In 1985, neuroanatomist Marion Diamond at UC Berkeley requested a sample. Harvey sent her 4 pieces of brain tissue, each roughly the size of a sugar cube, packed in chemicals, inside a repurposed Miracle Whip jar. That is the scientific dignity with which the world's most studied brain was handled. Diamond's team cut the tissue into sections 6 micrometers thick, thinner than a strand of human hair, and counted the cells under a microscope. What they found was the first hint that Einstein's brain was physically different. And in the years that followed, more scientists, more photographs, more measurements, and 5 specific structural findings that may finally explain what the patent clerk from Bern was doing inside his own skull. Finding 1, lateral sulcus. Let's start with the most dramatic discovery. In every human brain, yours, mine, every brain on Earth, there is a deep groove running along the outer surface called the lateral sulcus, the Sylvian fissure. It is one of the brain's most prominent features. It acts as a boundary, a structural division separating the parietal lobe, up top, from the temporal lobe below. Every human brain has this groove. Einstein's didn't. In Einstein's brain, the lateral sulcus was truncated, partially absent, shortened in a way that no normal brain shows. In 1999, Professor Sandra Weidelson at McMaster University in Canada published her analysis of Harvey's original photographs in The Lancet, one of the most prestigious medical journals on Earth. Her conclusion was precise. This unusual brain anatomy, the missing part of the Sylvian fissure, may explain why Einstein thought the way he did. Here is why that matters. That groove, that absent boundary, normally acts as a wall. It keeps the parietal lobe structurally separate from adjacent regions. In Einstein's brain, that wall was gone, which meant the neurons in the inferior parietal lobe, the region responsible for mathematical reasoning, visuospatial processing, and the ability to mentally manipulate objects in 3 dimensions, had no structural barrier between them and the regions they needed to communicate with. The neurons could reach further. They could talk to more of the brain. The signals could travel faster, more directly, across regions that, in your brain or mine, would be divided by geography. Now consider what Einstein actually did for a living. He didn't solve equations at a blackboard. He ran simulations in his mind. He imagined riding alongside a beam of light through the cosmos. He mentally constructed a man falling off a roof and noticed, in the middle of that imaginary fall, that the man would feel weightless. That observation became the equivalence principle, the core insight behind general relativity. He called it the happiest thought of his life. The visual, spatial, imaginative thinking that produced the theory of relativity was happening in exactly the region of his brain where his anatomy was most unusual. The missing wall, the open architecture, the neurons talking directly to each other across distances that in a normal brain would require detours. Finding 2, connected directly to the missing groove, is the second finding. Einstein's inferior parietal lobule was 15% wider than normal. 15%. That is not a rounding error. That is not noise in the data. And the explanation flows naturally from the first finding. Without the lateral sulcus creating a structural boundary, the parietal lobes had room to grow. They expanded into the space the groove would have occupied. They grew larger than a normal brain's architecture would permit. The inferior parietal lobule, now 15% wider than average, is the specific region responsible for mathematical thought, visuospatial cognition, the mental imagery of movement, the integration of sensory information from multiple sources into a single coherent understanding of space. It is, in practical terms, the part of the brain that lets you see an idea before you calculate it. Einstein described his own thinking in precisely these terms. He said his best insights did not arrive as equations. They arrived as images, as mental pictures that he then spent months, sometimes years, translating into mathematics. He once said, "If I were not a physicist, I would probably be a musician. I often think in music. I live my daydreams in music. I see my life in terms of music." He did not think in language. He thought in images, in spatial relationships, in the geometry of ideas. And the region of his brain most responsible for doing exactly that was 15% larger than it is in any brain being used to watch this video right now. Finding 3, the glial cells. The third finding came from Marion Diamond's work with those 4 sugar cube-sized pieces of tissue in the Miracle Whip jar. Her team counted cells. What they found in the left inferior parietal region, that same expanded, unusually wired region, was a significantly higher ratio of glial cells to neurons compared to the control brains. Now, when Diamond published this in 1985, most scientists still believed glial cells were relatively unimportant. They were called the brain's glue, structural support, nothing more. We now know that was completely wrong. Glial cells, particularly a type called astrocytes, actively regulate neurotransmission. They control the speed and efficiency of signals between neurons. They manage metabolic support, delivering energy to active neurons. They clean up waste products from neural activity. They modulate the strength of synaptic connections in real time. A higher density of glial cells in a specific region means that region has better infrastructure, more energy delivery, more maintenance, more regulation of the signals passing through. Think of it this way. If neurons are the engines, glial cells are the fuel systems, cooling systems, and mechanics all running simultaneously. The fourth finding may be the most important of all. In 2013, a research team led by physicist Weiwei Men at East China Normal University in Shanghai published a landmark study in the journal Brain. It was the first study ever to examine Einstein's corpus callosum in detail. The corpus callosum is the brain's internal highway, a massive bundle of nerve fibers connecting the left hemisphere to the right hemisphere. Every thought that integrates left brain processing with right brain processing. Every moment where logic and intuition work together, where language and imagery merge, where analytical thinking meets creative thinking, travels through the corpus callosum. It is the bridge between the two halves of your mind. Men's team compared measurements of Einstein's corpus callosum to those of 15 elderly men and 52 young, healthy men. The results were clear. Einstein's corpus callosum was thicker than both groups, across almost every measured region, particularly in the splenium, the rear section, which facilitates communication specifically between the parietal, temporal, and occipital lobes. The exact lobes responsible for spatial reasoning, mathematical processing, and visual imagination. In plain language, Einstein's two brain hemispheres were talking to each other more intensely than in any of the control brains. Left brain and right brain, unusually, powerfully connected. Dean Falk, evolutionary anthropologist at Florida State University, who co-authored the study, said, "This study, more than any other to date, really gets at the inside of Einstein's brain." And what the inside showed was not just a brain with certain regions enlarged, but a brain whose enlarged regions were unusually well wired to each other. The computation and the integration happening simultaneously at a level that typical neural architecture cannot produce. Finding 5. The violin knob. The fifth finding is perhaps the most human of all. When researchers examined high-resolution photographs of Einstein's primary motor cortex, the region that controls voluntary movement, they found an enlarged area on the left hemisphere, specifically in the region that controls the left hand. Einstein played violin his entire life. His mother, Pauline, the pianist, introduced him to music at age 6. He played until his final years. He played in public, in private, with friends, alone. He said he played when he was stuck. He said the music helped him think. The left hand of a violinist performs extraordinarily complex, independent movements, holding and pressing strings, shifting positions across the fingerboard, controlling vibrato, adjusting intonation in real time, while the right hand does something completely different. Decades of this training had physically remodeled the motor cortex of his brain. The region responsible for the left hand had grown, visibly, measurably, larger than in a brain that had never played. A permanent structural record of a lifetime of music, written into the physical architecture of his neurons. Einstein said, "The most beautiful thing we can experience is the mysterious. It is the source of all true art and science." He was not making a poetic observation. He was describing the operating system of his own mind. Art and science were not separate categories for him. They were the same process, pattern recognition, intuitive leaps across gaps in knowledge, the the mental construction of something that doesn't yet exist. The violin and the physics, the same architecture, different outputs. In 1998, 43 years after Einstein's death, Thomas Harvey drove across the country to return what remained of the brain to Princeton Hospital. He was 84 years old. He had carried it for nearly half a century. The tissue that wasn't used in scientific study eventually made its way to the National Museum of Health and Medicine in Silver Spring, Maryland. Some slides are in the Mutter Museum in Philadelphia, where visitors can look at them through a microscope. A piece of the most famous brain in modern history, preserved on a glass slide, 46 micrometers thick. The man wanted to be cremated. He wanted to leave nothing behind. Instead, he left us something scientists are still trying to fully understand. A brain that asked, what is hidden behind things? At age 5, and spent the next 71 years trying to find out. Imagination is more important than knowledge. Knowledge is limited. Imagination encircles the world.